Things are wonderful. Thank you very much for having me on. I'm very excited.
Well, I am, because, I mean, what an opportunity to pick your brain, because you are an executive coach. I mean, tell me what that means.
Okay, so I work a lot in companies, dealing with people on all different kinds of levels to help people perform better, be better leaders, how to present more confidently, motivate people, empower them. So anything that is going to help people in the company is what I do, from building on strengths to helping people build themselves up.
Right, because I would imagine, especially in big corporations or pressured jobs, there's potentially quite a lot of building up needed and quite a lot of stress and burnout issues to wade through.
Indeed, especially now. I mean, they always have been, but I think it's come to the fore because of COVID. I mean, there's always been a kind of, if you want to call it a pandemic, because it's an unseen pandemic of imposter syndrome in companies, and it's a very popular coaching topic, but it creates huge anxiety on a number of levels. And then, that's one level of anxiety. And then, of course, there's work-life balance, which is another level. And then, of course, there's also, depending on the company culture and the manager that you have, and if those aren't healthy and you have a manager who isn't a good communicator and it perhaps comes across as a bit dictatorial, creates an enormous amount of stress and anxiety.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be allowed, really, but we know it does go on. So how do you do it? I know you're a psychotherapist, and then you've sort of branched out into this specialism. How do you deal with people? How do you help people with stress or bad management?
Well, I think I'm very lucky in that my background as a psychotherapist enables me to see, if you like, under the hood. So I'm not taking what people are saying as surface value, because people don't just come into the workplace and have a work self. They come in with, your past programs, So it's looking at things like, for instance, what is your belief system? How did you grow up? Could be, one of the factors that maybe you grew up in a dysfunctional family, so you have a propensity towards anxiety and depression. It may be that you've taken on, an idea about something that it isn't positive, it isn't healthy. So it's about exploring these things, seeing where people come from, maybe reframing some of what's going on for them and helping them look at it from a different perspective, or alternatively, giving them actual practical methods. The other thing that I use is, because I'm a neuroscience junkie, so, and I've done a diploma in applied neuroscience, is actually helping people understand what happens in their brain, so that they, once you have an understanding of how things work, it actually helps you put things into perspective. So one of the techniques that I will offer is, it's called Name It to Tame It, which is, when that whole emotional bit in your brain is waggling around and flying around like a crazy flag in the wind, your thinking goes offline. So when you say, I'm feeling anxious, it brings some of that thinking back online and helps you have more control. So that would be one of the techniques, is helping them understand what's actually happening to them. And then techniques like breathing, reframing, helping them. There's a fantastic way of breathing. It's called the physiological sigh, which calms down your system within 5 breaths. So it's about helping people with those kinds of techniques.
It does sound quite complicated, but it sounds like it might be effective. And when I was reading up the notes about what you do, I was fascinated by epigenetics.
Ah, okay. So this is sort of one of my hot topics.
Yeah.
So, and it's controversial, and I'm sure that people, listening to this organizations will not be pleased that I'm going to say this. But, science has moved on, and what epigenetics is that we have hardwiring of epigenetic of our genes, which means that you look like you look and you as tall as you are, etc. And that's what you come into the world with. But then on top of that, you've got genes that change in accordance to your environment. So what happens when we are constantly in a high state of anxiety or stress? We weren't built for that. But obviously, as you can imagine, one can feel one's blood pressure going up and one gets ulcers, etc. So naturally, it's then, logical that what happens is that your body chemistry changes. And when that happens, your genes actually can switch on and off. So if they switch off, which means that they're not functioning properly, and it means that you're more predisposed to, suffering from, you could get cancer, you could get anxiety disorder, depression, etc. So to take an example would be if you take 9/11, people that were very traumatized and didn't have any mental health problems in their families, and then went on to have children, had children with, various mental health difficulties and possibly other, sort of other difficulties resulting from gene expression. But what happens is that this carries on for 3 generations. So what companies are doing now in terms of expecting, this high level of pressure and work, we hire you for 40 hours, but we actually expect you to work 70. And if you don't, the pressure and the unspoken messages are huge. And I've seen people actually literally have breakdowns. So if they change their genes enough from what's going on in the environment, their great-grandchildren are affected. So that's why I say that corporations actually have to take some responsibility in terms of what they're doing to their employees. And a wonderful thing has now happened with the Gen Z generation.
Yeah, Generation Z,
they've started this whole movement called quiet quitting, which is where they're prepared to work and, fulfill what needs to be done, but they want a work-life balance. And I think that this is going to be the revolution that changes the whole culture of working, is that you work and then you work extra. And when you go on holiday, you check your emails, you're at the end of the phone. So basically, you're not really having a holiday. I think that this is the start of a new change of work ethic because they are the future.
As I said to Desirée, I was like, the brain and the body are actually very heavily connected.
Absolutely. Your body is your brain. They really very closely connected. You've got a thing called the vagus nerve, which runs from your brain right into your body, and it goes right down to your toes. It connects all your organs. So what happens in your body, that's where you have visceral feelings. So those are things that you feel in your body. So an example would be you hear a song and you just you ricocheted back to Marbella, you won the lottery, you with the love of your life, and your whole body changes, its feeling. So that's a visceral feeling, and that is connected to your brain. That body feeling will tell your brain what's going on for you. So you can't actually separate them. They are one.
Gosh, it's something that we probably did know, but we need to be reminded of it because, so many times I've heard, snap out of it, get over it. But I know that anxiety can give you physical pain. So, yes, you're right. And that starts with a mental thing, but it ends up being a physical thing as well. It's really good to remind people of this. And I suppose that's just the concept that we know this about our bodies and ourselves and understand it is also quite healing in itself.
Yeah, I think that I think that this is now also the whole thing about how our brains and can change as, because there's something called neuroplasticity, which means that our brains can change throughout our lives. The whole thing of you can't teach a dog new tricks has been thrown out because our brains constantly change. So when they say, oh, I'm too old and long in the tooth, if you really have the desire. So as that habit was made and as that neural pathway was made, if you do something different, you'll form a new pathway as long as you repeat it. So this is all being taught in schools now. And I think that, we're still far away from knowing all about our brains. But this is coming in and it's becoming more known. It's becoming more common knowledge. And this is what I work with when I'm working with people and I'm coaching them, is helping them not only understand themselves, what's holding them back, but also giving them the education of knowing why it's happening, what's going on for them, and then tools and methods and strategies to help them move forward.
It's so fascinating and so needed. It really is. Where can we find out more information, Desiree? Where do we find you online?
Well, you can go to my company, which is headhonchos.co.uk. And the beauty of my coaching is that it's coaching on demand. So you can have an issue, come for one coaching session, and then come back when you have another issue. So, because usually coaching you tied in for long-term, sessions, whereas I just believe that problems take up mental space. If you can solve them and move on, then you've got mental space, and wait till the next time that space is taken up again. So that's one of the services that I offer in addition to long-term coaching.
It sounds very comprehensive and also fascinating as well. I don't know. You've obviously got so much wealth of knowledge and experience, and it's really reassuring to hear it actually, and know that there are people out there sticking up for us as workers.
Well, it's my passion, and I love helping people. I really get a buzz out of it. So I enjoy going to work every day and seeing how people change and the realizations that they have. I can't do much. I'm not an Elon Musk or whatever that's going to change the world in that way, but hopefully some of the work that I have will have a ripple effect and be good down the line.
I'm sure it will. Brilliant to chat to you. We could literally learn from you all day long, but we'll wrap it up now. Desiree, just a fascinating career that you have, and we'll check you out at headhonchos.co.uk.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me on. It's been lovely speaking with you.
Desirée Silverstone, headhonchos.co.uk. It's fairly obvious she's not from round here, originally from South Africa, but she's been here for more than 2 decades, and what a career she's had.